I'll see only a few movies a year, several movies a year in the movie theater. But among those, I try to see some comedies. I like a good laugh, chance to relax a little bit, put the world aside. And over the years, you can kind of see certain funny moments coming. You know what's going to happen next. Like when they focus in on a man or a woman who's walking down a hallway or down a stairwell, and they're carrying a lot of boxes, and they're very carefully moving along just to hold it all. And then you start to see one of the boxes gets a little askewed, and it kind of starts to jiggle around a little bit. Next thing you know, they're trying to hold on to all the boxes, and they eventually just fall all out of their hands, and they're all over the floor, or they're cascading down the stairs. And that's worth a chuckle. I find that's pretty good, even though I've seen it 100 times, and maybe you have too. All the same, it's not just, let's say, that someone dropped the boxes, it looks funny. It is in its own right, but sometimes these moments in a comedy get me thinking about myself, helping to teach me to laugh at myself for things that go on, or maybe things that don't go on in my life. I mean, I'm kind of a clumsy person. I'll never make the Olympic team. So dropping boxes down the stairs, yeah, I could see myself doing that in a heartbeat. Can I think of myself in a less serious way, not take myself that seriously? Can I laugh at myself? Sure. I know many of you can too. It kind of gives us a little sense of balance. Takes a little bit of the air out of the balloon, and that's a good thing. We shouldn't take ourselves that seriously. But there you are, boxes all over the floor and your hands are empty. And it's a funny moment. Every now and then, though, empty hands aren't the funny moment. Empty hands reflect maybe a little something somber going on, or something very, very serious going on. Recently, I had a chance to listen, and I heard an interview on the radio. This fellow, thought I recognized the voice. And it was a fellow named Chris Thiele. Don't know if you know that name. He plays the mandolin. Has been playing the mandolin all of his life, it seems. I first heard him years ago when I was, of all things, doing the dishes on Saturday and Sunday night at the seminary. And I still hear him over the years when I'm doing my dishes after Saturday Vigil Mass. Cook dinner, have a little dinner, do the dishes. Have public radio on. They'd have a show on that had music and storytelling. It's a lot of fun. He was in the middle of that. He put out a new album. And you know how it is. Actors, actresses, musicians go out and they're promoting their album. They're promoting their movie. They're promoting their book. Well, he's doing that. And they're talking about the music he has on the album. And these mandolin songs. Some talk about tragedy and sadness. Others about loss. Others about things missed along the way. Others talking about thanksgiving, offering praise. And the interviewer, on public radio no less, asked him, Chris, it sounds like some of these things are coming from a spiritual place. Can you talk about that? And he said, sure, but that's a bittersweet moment for me because when I was young, I used to go to church every Sunday and every Wednesday night with my parents. They were very, very strict fundamentalist Christians. He said, I knew my scriptures, chapter and verse, I knew them. But things happened over time and I'm not a churchy person anymore. I guess this album gets me thinking a little bit how I'm longing for more, but I don't know where to find it. He said, what do you do, Chris? He said, well, I've got a couple of friends. I have coffee with them every now and then, and we talk about God. I guess that's my connection. I'm hanging on by my fingernails, and they're there to help me, and they're good friends, and I really thank them for being there. One of these days, maybe I'll get myself together, but I'm not ready yet. Wow, that's pretty good. How often do you hear somebody open up like that? Public radio, no less. Well, what hit me about that was, here's this fellow, and he's at a point in his life where he realizes he's not holding a lot of boxes anymore. All this stuff fell out of his grasp, all over the floor. He doesn't know how to get it back. He's left with his mandolin. He's just strumming away as fast as he can, as hard as he can, thinking about ways to get it back. And one of the ways to get it back is to just remember his faithful roots and spiritual roots, but like all the stuff on the floor, he doesn't know how to pick it up. He's stuck. Maybe we know people who feel stuck in the same way. They're not as connected with faith anymore, not as connected with church anymore, not as connected with God anymore, not as connected with family anymore. Who reaches out to them? Our gospel today has the disciples. Jesus has revealed to them something that you and I might watch saying, boy, this is deep from the heart. Jesus is talking to the disciples about what his destiny involves, what will happen to him in the last days of his life, how he'll be arrested, how he'll be convicted, how he'll die, and he'll come back again. And the rest of the walk, Jesus hears them arguing among themselves. He might be thinking, hey, they're really kind of thinking about what I said. But that evening he asked them, hey, what was that now you were talking about on the road? What was that you were arguing about on the road? And they say nothing. Jesus placed something very special in their hands. And they put it aside. They dropped it on the ground and kept walking because they'd rather pick up the boxes that talk about Jesus is going. Who's going to be the next leader? Who's first among the equals? Who do we turn to for leadership? And that might sound a little funny to our ears, but look at the world we live in. Power, money, possessions, position, influence. There's lots of boxes we can carry. And God knows we work hard to balance them and keep them all. Try not to drop them because they're important, so we think. But Jesus instead, in fact, I love this. Jesus is so a teacher with the disciples. He's so gentle and loving. He doesn't scold them for being reduced to silence. He doesn't scold them for putting aside his word and instead substituting, what's it mean for me and how can I be in charge? Instead, he brings a small child to their midst, and Jesus takes the child into his arms. And he says to the 12, whoever welcomes a child like this welcomes me. And whoever welcomes me welcomes the one who sent me. Jesus wanted them to think about, hey, let's get back to be centered on God. Listen to the words I give to you from my Father. You receive me, you receive him. Just as you receive this child, you receive me. What do you do when I place this child in your arms? Jesus is telling them. You're receiving me. Hold me, take care of me. How about the child? The disciples must be wondering, what are we going to do with the child? Well, let's think about that. We can love the child. We can feed the child. We can teach the child, teach them things from the heart, share faith. We can be understanding and forgiving with the child. We can be patient with the child. We can teach the child things we know. We can empower them. We can fill them with confidence and hope. We can walk with them. And then at a certain point in life, when they're ready, we let them walk on their own. Not just when they're 1 or 2, but when they're adults ready to go. Yeah, there's lots of things we can do with a child. What are things we can do for others? How about Chris Thiele? Who's going to pick him up? He's hanging on by his fingernails thinking, how do I find a community where we can offer thanks and praise to God? Who's going to reach out and pick him up and hold him and not drop him? How about the couple down the street who got the word that they need to be quarantined? Who's going to pick them up? Who's going to get their groceries and put them on the front steps? Who's going to make sure they're okay? How about people who are new to Coxsackie? Do we walk over and welcome them? Jesus talked about welcoming the stranger. How about people who are not just new to Coxsackie, they're new to the United States? How do we express our welcome to them? The Jesus who welcomes the strangers welcomes everyone. How do we fit into that? How do we keep from dropping them? The elderly couple down the street who are kind of frail, what's the phrase? As long as we're talking singers, they're in the September of their years, maybe beyond. Do we reach out to them? Do we spend time with them? Do we make sure things are happening okay for them? Do we treat them like family? Yeah. So many things that Jesus calls us to pick up and to carry, to be good disciples. What did James say? The disciples, they were worried about succession. They were worried about who's next. How did that reading end? James writes, you do not possess because you don't ask. You ask, but you do not receive because you ask wrongly. You spend it on your passions. The disciples got sidetracked on succession plans. They dropped their boxes. How about us? Let's ask the Lord what his Son wants us to do. Let's ask the Lord how we can best do it, knowing as disciples we have gifts and we're imperfect. But can we use the gifts to the best of our ability? All in his name for love. All in his name for service. Maybe we should always keep in mind that Jesus calls us to be disciples, to follow him, and to pick up where he left off.